Welcome to your Wordless podcast, the space where we redefine success, self-worth, and transformation. I am Nick Nieras, the soul-centered architect of transformation, helping you unlock your highest potential and build a legacy beyond limits. Now, whether it is self-mastery, career breakthroughs, or wealth creation, this is where change begins. Now let's dive in. Hi, Scott. Good evening to you. How are you?
I'm great. I'm glad we finally got around to having this
Yes.
happen.
Yes. Thank you to technology and our relentlessness. We made it happen. So I'd like to introduce you to my listeners and then we can get right into our conversation. So, hello everyone. We have Scott Grace here with us. Scott has been described as a cross between John Denver, wow, the singer, Robin Williams, and Dr. Seuss, and is wanted by the authorities for creating peace as well as defying the law of gravity with levity. Now, Scott gives keynotes using a stolen identity, aka the spiritual Dr. Seuss. His feel-good viruses on YouTube have infected over 2.5 million people with just 4 of his Seussian videos. Scott has been known to practice life coaching without a license, eluding the police by working on Zoom. Okay, thank God. He fancies himself an intuitive channel who smuggles wisdom and guidance over the border of beings from beings he calls spirit guides. Well, who are also not licensed and have allegedly not filed a tax return in several lifetimes. Now, as a front, Scott does do various legal above-board activities. He has written 4 books, his latest being Mindful Masculinity. Scott has also recorded 9 CDs, compact discs of his original music and comedy. He presents an inspirational guest speaker and singer at churches, nonprofits, schools, and corporate events. As an occasional stand-up comedian in the Bay Area, he has shared the stage with Dana Carvey and Robin Williams. Wow. But don't be fooled, his rampage of song portraits, custom-made personalized song gifts that honor people for their birthdays, anniversaries, or for no reason at all, have been killing people softly with their song since 1987. Like, okay, well, welcome Scott to the show.
Thank you. I never would have written that introduction if I knew that I was going to have to hear it. It was torture.
Was it?
Thank you for making it shorter. Yeah.
Okay, well, I tried. Yeah, this is awesome. When I read it, like I was reading it and I'm like, I was smiling from ear to ear. There must be something to Scott here. So, Scott, can you please tell us first before we dive into your work, your journey so far? What was it like growing up as a Scott Grace?
I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. I was raised by very scientifically minded atheist parents, and it was about surviving. And I developed a sense of humor as a defense mechanism. And I also developed a lot of empathy because I was so connected to my mom, and I felt like I needed to take care of her feelings. So all of these aspects of survival and woundedness eventually became my the fertile ground for my gifts. So now I get to be fun and funny, not just to survive, but to teach and to inspire. And the empathy is part of my healing work. So it started out as just, I've got to find a way to survive in this world. And now it's like, these are my gifts. I'm no longer defined by Brooklyn, New York, even though I still sound like it a little bit.
Are you still in Brooklyn?
No, I'm in Mexico.
No,
Yeah.
really? Mexico. So they speak Spanish, right?
Yeah, they do.
¿Cómo estás?
Muy bien, gracias, a todo dar. ¿Y tú, Colette, cómo estás?
Muy bien. A little bit. Just to get by, just to say hello.
Sí.
Well, that is such an interesting story. I was just in Brooklyn last September. I was just in New York last September and I enjoyed it very much. And to the point that I think I will be coming back maybe this year with what's happening right now in the States. Whew. Okay, maybe
Yes.
I'll give it you know, let it cook for a while.
And burn. And, it's like,
Yeah, I love that.
let
Cook
it
it.
burn to the ground. See what happens on the other side when we're dealing with the ashes.
Yes, yes, yes. And I love and I just remembered I forgot to introduce myself formally to you and to our listeners who may be listening to this podcast the first time. So if you could allow me, my name is Nicolette. I am the creator for the podcast titled You're Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. Before we started our conversation, got you mentioned that self-worth is one of your biggest topic that you enjoy speaking about.
Yeah.
And in your introduction, you also talked about you being a channel for your spiritually. You have like we all have spiritual beings and spirit guides, right? So I wanted to ask you, and there is this part in your question. You have poems, and your poems are often linked to self-worth. Can you perhaps share with us some of the poems that you've made, and why did you make these poems? Like, why is self-worth very close to your heart?
I think that there's a lot of us who want to make the world a better place, who feel the pain around us, maybe even feel it for other people. And that's beautiful. But the shadow side, the challenging aspect of that kind of personality is that we are quick to make ourselves wrong, to be our worst enemies or critics. And so I've struggled with that my whole life. And so I've turned the attention to the critical voice, the guilt, the self depreciation. And in order for people to see it and choose out of it, it has to be illuminated. And so I found that songs and poetry are my favorite way of helping people get conscious of that. Like, for instance, I won't share the whole poem. It's like a 7-minute poem, but talking about the inner critic, which is the voice of unworthiness. It's the story in your head that keeps repeating and finding evidence in the world that you're not doing it right, that you're not enough, that you're not living your potential, all these different messages. So the poem is about this inner criticism, and it says, your critic will travel with you on this earth and be your companion for worse or worse. It pretends it's your friend, your bestest amigo, and it pours on the guilt. That's the beverage of ego. It's there to protect you, to help you be strong. So it has to remind you, you've done it all wrong. You're weak and you're lazy and you don't have a clue. That's your drill sergeant critic trying to motivate you. Your critic wants you to be all you can be, so it gives you these pep talks all day and for free, the places you'll go and the guilt trips you'll travel as your critic plays judge and bangs down on its gavel. But you always can get some relief from your shame by projecting it onto the others you'll blame. For that is the critic at its beastiest best. It nurses its grievances close to its chest. Republicans, liberals, your parents, your ex. The world is just full of folks to correct. If only these fools could conform to your ways, you could get on with life without further delays. So that's just a segment of one of the poems about self-worth. Why, how we convince ourselves that we're not enough the way we are.
I had to take a moment because you hit the nail in the head for me. At least growing up, I just want to share a little bit about my story as well. Growing up, I've always been this one person I don't know, but it's always been drilled to me that I have to do the best in everything. Maybe because the key to changing my life is just education. And yeah, my dad, we didn't grow up a lot. So, if I want to change, the key is in my hands. So therefore, I made it the narrative that I have I've placed the belief in myself that the only way to succeed in life is to get a good paying job and then get all the shiny things in the world, and then I'm happy. But life humbled me in a very, very, how do I say, humbling way. 5 years ago, I went through my divorce and then had a big change in my career. And it's a career that I actually I thought I wanted when I was 20, but at 30 it didn't resonate with me anymore. So now I've made the pivot to podcasting and helping people transform their own lives. During those period, I felt worthless during the divorce and the transition, because that's what I've always tied my identity to, the achievement. So now that I don't have any, I'm worthless. Therefore, I don't amount to anything. And that's also the impetus of my podcast. And I name my
Yeah.
podcast that. Hearing you say that really does let me know that I'm not the only one with this problem. Because I thought that during that period, those times, I felt I was the why me? And truly, it's not like that. When you're meant to learn something, the universe is going to give it to you until you learn that lesson. And I want to talk about this to you as well, because you have said you're guided by your spirit guides. So how did you learn to hear about that? To listen to that inner voice?
I would say music has been very helpful for me. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I had an experience when I was about 24 years old. I was in an airport waiting for my plane to take off,
Mm-hmm.
and I just took out my guitar to pass the time, and I began to attract people, and we were all singing songs together. There were a couple other guitarists. This was before 9/11, so there was
Oh,
less security and more spontaneity in the airport, more fun to be had. So I was just doing Beatles and John Denver, and I heard a voice in my head saying, "Sing Amazing Grace." And I had never heard a voice before. And I said, "Nah, no, that sounds a little too spiritual for this crowd, and I don't want to go there." And the voice had, "Sing Amazing Grace now."
gosh.
So I did, and the whole crowd joined me, and it was beautiful. And man in a very formal business suit came over with uncharacteristic tears coming down his eyes, and he said, "I'm just coming back from my mother's funeral, and as I passed you and heard the song, that was her favorite song. And I heard her say that she's always going to be with me and that she's in a good place when I heard that song here at the airport. So thank you so much." And I remember thinking, okay, so I have a voice that's going to tell me what to sing if I listen to it. And I said, okay, you know, I want to hear that voice more. I'm really interested in being guided rather than thinking that I'm alone. So I entered into a relationship with that voice. Sometimes I perceive it as Jesus. Sometimes it's more feminine. Sometimes it doesn't identify a damn thing and just tells me what's best. And sometimes it doesn't have words. It's just an intuitive hunch, like, just go talk to that person. Or I have this gift of somehow knowing what songs to sing, even if it's not my song. Like, I'll just be passing by somebody and I'll start singing Eleanor Rigby, and they'll be like, "I was just thinking that song." So music is kind of like an excuse for me to let go of my rational, educated mind and enter the intuitive realms.
It's late for you, Scott. I am so sorry. What time do you actually sleep? 9, 8?
I'm an old fuddy-duddy these days. I get into bed around this time. I
Which is
read,
9.
and then yeah,
Right.
it's 9 o'clock here in Mexico.
Okay.
So I need something
Right.
to wake me up, Nicolette.
Okay.
I I
So
I
you're gonna
have
sing me a song.
I'm gonna sing you a song.
Okay, good.
Hi, I'm Nick Nieras, your host of the Your Worthless podcast. Now, if these real raw stories hit home, don't wait. Please follow, like, and subscribe my Spotify and YouTube. For bite-sized inspirational reels, follow me on Instagram, TikTok, and LinkedIn. Don't wait. Your transformation starts today. Thank you, and bye for now.
All right. So
This is a funny interview.
this is one I wrote when I was beating myself up for not taking a risk that I thought I should take. And I just was like sitting there giving myself grief about not doing it right, not doing it perfect. And the song that came to me to write was my healing. And now it's your healing, Nicolette. So here it is. Once I thought by now I'd be Mr. Functionality, perfect and complete in every way. I still get lost and then get found as I walk this sacred stumbling ground. I need to reassure me I'm okay. I'm all grown up, the world can see, but that is just one side of me. I'm also a tender child finding my way. I sometimes fumble in the dirt. I have a heart that can be hurt. And so I hear a voice within me say, handle yourself with care. There's a precious child of God in there. Handle yourself with care. There's a precious child of God in there. There's a judge inside who's sometimes strong, convinced I'm doing my whole life wrong. So quick to rise up to my prosecution. But as I grow, it's getting clear the judge is just a voice of fear, and gentleness my only real solution. How can a child of God feel safe if I'm trying to whip myself in shape? There must be another way to grow. Petals of my heart open in a loving self-environment. A flower grows and blooms when it's given. Handle yourself with care. There's a precious child of God in there. Handle yourself with care. There's a precious child of God in there.
I'm emotional. Thank
Indeed.
you, Scott.
Indeed.
I don't want to cry. I think I needed that.
I want you
Whoa,
to cry. I
okay.
want everyone to cry. I want to cry. I love to cry.
You
Best
love to
moments in
cry?
life. I love
Yeah.
to cry. I love to cry. It makes life so much juicier. It turns off the head, opens the heart, and it's directly related to how much joy and happiness I can feel. That's me. I don't know if it's everyone, but for me, I don't get to feel joy and happiness unless I'm willing to cry. Yeah, I even wrote a song it's kind of like just a little prayer about that. Guess what I'm going to sing next? May I laugh all my laughter, may I cry all my tears. May I love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. May I laugh all my laughter, laughter. May I cry all my tears. May I love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. Life touch me. I want to let life move me deep. Want to let life stir me from an ancient sleep. May I laugh all my laughter. May I cry all my tears. May I love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears. May I laugh all my laugh, cry all my tears, and love the rain as deeply as the sun when it clears.
Oh, Scott. Oh, okay. This has turned out to be the most unconventional podcast I've ever recorded. And
Really? Well, we're just getting warmed.
yes,
We're just getting warmed up. So
is that right? I am
it's
very mindful of your time because
don't
it
worry
was
about
late
it.
for you.
No, don't worry about it. I'm fine. You know, people don't realize this, but yawning is not necessarily a sign that you're bored or that you want to get off the call. Yawning is a release of energy, and it helps me be more present. So I don't understand why people consider yawning
Is
to be
that
a
right?
negative thing. It's an emotional release. I felt more comfortable with you. I'm going to just relax into my body, and out comes a yawn. It's the exact opposite of boredom.
Wow. Again, the juxtaposition. Scott, are you aware or are you well versed with the astrology or what's happening with the planets right now?
I
And
am
you,
not. I'd
okay.
be interested to hear your take on it.
Well, not the planet Earth, but the other planets that aligned. There are 6 planets that align right now. And it's not almost, but it is like the old Earth and the new Earth. Has split. Yeah. So, and us yawning or feeling like we need to rest and relax is the aftermath of that. It's like you seeping in, okay, I am integrating myself into one. And every time I speak that, I notice that you'd yawn. So I think you're getting more aligned to what I have to say. And of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Now, Scott, how can we have less struggle in our lives, the suffering we create in our mind?
Becoming a podcast host was a natural extension of my second act. Now, after spending 15 years in the corporate world, I've transitioned to helping individuals overcome challenges like navigating tough relationships, career burnout, and aligning their mission with their soul's calling. By certifying as an RTT hypnotherapist and a lifestyle coach, I've made it my mission to empower people to recreate the life they deserve and building a supportive community through my podcast. Now let me ask, are you facing challenges like struggling to reprogram your mind to attract wealth, weight issues that feel like a constant yo-yo, insomnia or restless nights from daily worries, or just a lack of confidence in public speaking? If the answer is yes, visit www.thenicknyarasholisticlifestyle.com and grab a free hypnosis audio of these common struggles. It's a sneak peek into how my coaching works. Are you feeling shy? Don't be, because I'm as real as it gets. Let's connect on Instagram and LinkedIn and start your transformation today.
Yeah. The question is like, what is the suffering that we need to help us wake up? And what is the suffering that we create unnecessarily because we're drama kings or drama queens, and we just are acting out the script of our parents or our insane culture. Like everybody has a journey with that. I was pretty addicted to struggle and getting my self-esteem, little jolts of self-esteem from working really hard. And
Yeah.
there was a turnaround moment for me, and it was on the East Coast, and I was beginning a 6-week tour with my music and my workshops and my books and all this. It's a big deal. I had been doing it for 25 years. Every May, I would come to the East Coast, and I would come with 2 big suitcases filled with books and CDs and clothes and every and I the first weekend workshop that I gave, it was a 3-day workshop, Memorial Day weekend. And at the end on Monday, I packed my bags. And because I hadn't sold the usual amount of CDs and books, they were still very heavy. And I was going to be taking public transportation 4 hours into New York City for my next gig. And I picked up those bags and something inside me said, no, you can't do this anymore. You're 40, whatever, however I was in my 40s. And it was like, no, this is like, this can't be. You don't deserve to struggle like this. And I just said a prayer. I said, okay, universe, I don't know how I'm getting to New York without public transportation, but I want it to be easier. I'm ready for it to be easier. I deserve for it to be easier. And I will not pick up these bags and take them on a train. I'm done. So that was like a pretty powerful moment. And then I went into the workshop space and people were milling about. The workshop hadn't ended yet, but we were just getting ready to get started. And somebody came up to me and said, so where are you off to next, Scott? And I said, New York City. And he said, oh, well, we're going to New York City. We live there. He said, where are you going? And I named the street. And he said, we live on that street. And I said, oh, well, I'm amazed. Are you able to give me a lift? Do you have room in your car? And he said, yeah. And he took my bags and he put them in the trunk of his car. And then he and his wife lived in the same building that I was going to. So he actually took my bags and delivered them to the apartment. And it was at that time that I realized that I could have a lot less struggle in my life. And a lot of the struggle was because I anticipated it, I expected it, and part of me was getting off on it. Like I can love myself only when I'm working hard and struggling to make ends meet. That's a path that's going to build character. And it was at that time that I realized, that's not the character I'd like to build. I don't want to be that kind of character anymore. That's my parents. That's my culture. I don't want to be that. And I don't have to be that.
I can relate. You have to prove yourself of something. Only then you can love yourself of other people to validate who you are.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
I love that.
So
I have learned.
out of that came one of the Dr. Seuss poems, and I would like to share some of it with you, not all of it, but it's my favorite. It's called The Story of Struggle and the Garden of Ease. It says, get in your pajamas, let's gather and snuggle. And I'll tell you a story, the story of struggle. It begins at a time before struggle began, in a garden called Easy, where all things were grand. The people who tended the garden had fun. They prospered and played and got lots of things done. One day, two plain folks, call them Adam and Eve, went under the covers with shame and some leaves. And then came the blame game, the who cut the cheese. Was it Eve or a snake or the wrong choice of trees? The day-to-day play, all the joy they were given, gave way to the sense we must work for a living. And God did reply, kids, you gotta be kidding. Everything you could want is right here, not forbidden. But they would not, they could not receive the good news. They thought that to play they must first pay their dues. By the sweat of thy brow we must now earn our bread. And they didn't know the gluten had gone to their heads. Now it goes on and it has a happy ending. The very transformation that I went through with struggle is in that poem. It's just very time consuming, so I'll stop there. All of these poems are on my YouTube channel, my website. I call it the spiritual Dr. Seuss. Did you grow up at all with Dr. Seuss in your life? It's mostly
No,
American. It's
it's
just an
yeah,
American
exactly.
thing.
It's
Yeah.
not, but yeah, this is Dr. Seuss is mostly American, but I am always been a curious child. So I do have some exposure to Dr. Seuss, the Grinch,
Yes.
that green thing. Yeah, I just, this is like every person that comes onto my show, it's like a message from God to me. I always believe in look at the message, don't look at the messenger. So I remember praying so very fervently last night because of something that I'm waiting for. And it's almost feels like it's coming. And it's almost saying that just rest and relax. And now you're saying it the same thing. No need to struggle anymore.
Indeed.
I will heed to that advice. Thank you, Scott.
Yeah. Hey, I want to acknowledge you, Nicolette. I want to appreciate you because you took your deepest wound and insecurity and turned it into a podcast to help people who feel the way that you have felt. And that's pure courage to go to the hardest thing in your life and turn it into a gift, turn it into something that is a healing ministry for others, you know? So I'm proud of you.
Okay, you managed to make me cry. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
Next
I
time you
needed
have
that.
me back, no more mascara.
For sure. For sure.
Mm,
Okay. In your book, you hardly ever use the word toxic masculinity.
yes.
Why did you choose to avoid it?
Well, first of all, the book that you're referring to, for those of you that don't understand, my latest book is called Mindful Masculinity, a book for men and the women who love them. And it really was created to be an antidote, to be the solution to this thing that people are talking a lot about these days called toxic masculinity. And I decided not to really address that because I don't think there's anything toxic about masculinity. I think there's something that is toxic when we forget what masculinity is about. And for me, masculinity is about using strength and courage to serve and to serve something and someone other than your ego. And to take the courage and the discipline and the will, personal will that you would take to the gym and or even the battlefield, you know, and face death and risk your life to serve your country. That courage of a warrior, now that courage is needed to be a warrior of your own inner battlefield. In other words, to bring self-awareness, mindfulness, and the willingness to look and observe and be honest about what you see inside yourself without the critical voice. You know, the warrior doesn't just observes, and that's power. And that's what masculinity these days is, having to make a switch from power over people to the power of self-knowledge. Knowledge is power. And most men know more about what's under the hoods of their car than what's in their psyches, what's driving them, or what's sabotaging them. You know, it's ignorance. And I like to move things along in the culture and inspire both men and women to do it differently. The whole relationship dance and owning your inner masculine. Women have an inner masculine, and men, either they're lost in an old definition of masculinity, which is left brain. You know, left brain is intellect, and it's power and force and willing things to happen. And then there's this whole side of the brain that's right brain, that is intuitive and yin and receptive. You know, it's like when you were saying, Nicolette, you know, you've done the work and it's time to just rest in receptivity, not to do more, to try to draw that surprise to you. That's the right brain. And none of us in our culture have had the development of the right brain. the way that we've developed the left. So there's some work to do, and it's fun and it's beautiful and it involves emotions and intuition and these beautiful gifts from the universe that are so much more rewarding than thinking our way through life.
How can one step into their feminine energy more, for men especially?
Boy, well, through the angels of divorce, failure, bankruptcy, crisis. When a man is lost in trying to find his happiness in the world, whether it be acquiring wealth or a relationship or sex or fame, those dreams have to fail. And then his grief hopefully becomes so overwhelming that he surrenders his plans. And that's when he becomes interested and receptive to things like prayer or, helping the world and not just helping himself and all of these beautiful things that are more right brain and feminine. So each man comes to that in their own time and through their own triggers. Some men read my book and, really get it. But most people have to have their life experiences rattle their cages so much until we just say, okay, my way is not working. Let's try something new.
And is it ever too late to hear and heed that voice?
No. Oh my God. No. People are waking up in 70s, 80s. Absolutely never too late. Beautiful things are happening on this planet right now. Spontaneous awakenings, healings at any age.
What are you working on currently, Scott?
Well, I'm summoning up the courage and willingness to speak more about my latest book and to go into the world of paid professional speaking. So I've been seeing podcasts as going to the gym and developing my muscles and feeling more confident about speaking. And now I'm feeling guided to go into scary areas for me, like to speak at Google or Apple or places where I get to travel and all of these things I've always wanted to do. So that's new territory for me.
I love that. So, Scott, what is your heart's greatest wish?
Peace, peace of mind, peace of heart. And, that seems to be an abstract idea, but for me, it means going through the day without fight or flight, without adrenaline and cortisol being the main hormones being pumped through my body. Like really learning how to do tasks in balance and balance work with play, with meditation and quiet. Because I have a very high-strung nervous system, and it needs so that if I do get out into the world and travel and stuff like that, I get so easily overwhelmed right now. So I want to be more equanimous. I want to have more equanimity.
In equanimity.
Thank you. Yeah. We'll figure this out together, Nicole,
Thank you.
with the help
We
of
will.
Google. Yes. And
Do you have a
AI will
mantra?
help. Do I have a mantra?
Yes. Do you have a mantra that you live by? AI should enhance and help us. They're not there to overtake us.
My mantras are simple little songs that I sing to myself. Like this has been lately been really one of my mantras. Today I choose be a little kinder. Today I choose to love myself. Today I choose to treat myself kinder. Today I choose to love myself. That little ditty, singing that in front of the mirror so disarming, and it just melts me. I like to melt.
I can see that. Thank you for everything that you've done, Scott. And just one message to the listeners right now. If you could have a quote for you to leave them and the world as your legacy, what would it be?
If I had one quote, one legacy, I would share it in poetry. I would share it so they wouldn't forget. I would put it right into the heart of Nicolette, knowing that Nicolette is going to share it with her tribe, and it's going to spread, and it's going to be such a good vibe. And the vibe is, you've already arrived. There's no place to go. You can take it slow and go into this right brain feminine flow where things just come in effortlessly. That's my mantra I leave you with.
So it's true. You can make up a rhyme at any time.
You just
I
rhymed
love
just
that.
now, Nicolette. You said, Scott, you can make up a rhyme at any time.
Yeah, I did it. Okay, Scott, how can people reach out to you?
Well, simple website. It's scottsongs.com, SCOTTSONGS.com. And it's there that you can scroll down, look at my books, and sign up and look at my coaching and subscribe to my very, very, very occasional newsletters. Because
Thank you, Scott.
I'm too busy being effortless to put
Being
out a
you.
news. Yeah.
Yeah, I just released my own newsletter last week as well, and I made the frequency to be weekly. So that is
Whoa.
one thing.
All right. Yeah.
Scott, it's raining. You remember when you sang just now, you said rain,
Yes.
right? And I was like, yeah.
Yes. How nice.
Scott, this has been so wonderful, touching, heartfelt conversation I've had this year, actually. A lot more people are really aligning to at least the frequency that I'm in. This has not been like a podcast even. It's just a conversation between two persons. It's meant to meet. Yeah, two souls. It's meant to meet in this lifetime. So Scott, thank you very much for your light, for your work. And I pray that you have that gigs that you're looking for. Then, and I have a feeling, or maybe, yeah, one day we'll meet.
I would
I'd like
love
to meet
that.
kind souls like your soul.
Well, we met tonight or this morning.
Yeah, we made it happen.
Indeed.
So I'd like to close it off here for our listeners. This has been another thought-provoking episode of Your Worthless. Read that again. The juxtaposition of your very soul. If you've ever felt worthless, know this, you're not alone. But here's the deeper truth. If you were truly worthless, why would your soul choose to be here in this exact moment in this lifetime? Your soul traveled from the infinite, not just to exist, but to matter. For that reason alone, you are worthy. And with that, I'd like to thank Scott Grace for joining us today, and to all of you for listening. Until next time, I'm Nick Nieras, your host. Keep shining, keep growing, and remember, you are worthy and you are enough. See you in the next episode. Thank you so much, Scott, for your time.
Love this episode? Now, transformation doesn't end here. Head on to @holistic.lifestyle_with_Nick. That is on my Instagram. Or head on to my website, www.nicknieras.holisticlifestyle.com for more info on my coaching framework, which is the Worthy, Authentic, and Abundant Framework, digital guides, and my upcoming events such as retreats and master classes and workshops. Now, I also do intuitive readings where we get to check on your soul path